What do you not understand about that?
Hello, I'm Cavassier the goddamn Newt. Dana White has long been a polarizing figure. However, there used to be a balance between the underdog anti-hero Dana, who spoke a sort of truth to power with his profane everyman verbiage, and the self-interested red-faced profiteer who reigns from a bully pulpit, ever willing to malign fighters and turn the fans against them. That balance seems all but gone. Perhaps it was the Reebok deal, or the repeated poor treatment of multiple champions, or possibly the sale of the UFC for more than $4 billion and how it seems to have impacted the quality of the product. It's hard to know. After the mass shooting in Las Vegas, Dana White was a public voice for the community to come together, provide help for those affected, and be an example of strength so the city and nation might heal. This tragedy hit extremely close to everything Dana White loves and values. It's the kind of experience that can change a person forever. Should we expect to change Dana White moving forward? And what would that look like? This is Dana's pre-taped message about the shooting. It opened the pay-per-view broadcast for UFC 216.
There are no words to describe this week's tragedy here in Las Vegas.
The first thing I noticed is the husky tone in Dana's voice, a little raw from expressing a range of strong emotions. It's also likely he's trying to keep the darker emotions out of his voice right now. You'll notice Dana looks to his left several times. He's glancing at a cue card for reassurance. He's not reading. He knows what he wants to say. These are his words. The cue card has bullet points for his reference. We can see as the clip begins to fade in, Dana's resting facial expression is partly pent-up rage, but mostly it's resolve. His jaw is set, mouth shut hard to keep the darker impulses from his lips. At the end of the first phrase, Dana pauses and clamps his lips. He starts to talk.
Taken too soon. But out of the chaos,
then he has to repeat the same gesture of breathing deep, licking his lips, then pressing them together to relieve stress and to keep anger at bay.
But
just before he starts the next part, look at his expression. For one, you'll see he's holding stress all over his face, his forehead, his jaw muscles, his lips are tight, but look at his eyebrows. They are symmetrically raised in the middle and down at the outside. This is the look of sincere compassion and empathy. It is an overwhelming empathy that motivates Dana here, and we see it expressed later when Dana seems more understanding and compassionate than as usual.
The world witnessed what we've always known. The city is brave.
A piece of his anger slips through.
The city is brave.
He thinks about the horror inflicted on his city. He has to close his eyes and grit his teeth. He bares his canines, then resumes composure. We get a lot of licking from Dana throughout, and this can mean different things. Here it's mostly stress, but part as a result of Dana's fight-or-flight instinct being triggered, but there's no one to fight. Hopefully Dana can find a way to dissipate his paternal outrage, or a few weeks down the line he'll invent a foe to battle and it could get ugly.
And it doesn't stop here. Don't be afraid. Don't let fear stop you.
This is a complex set of gestures. Dana's trying to bolster courage in those who might be leery to go out in public after the tragedy. So we get the compassionate eyebrows. With it comes added stress all the way across his forehead, probably anger, and he squints his eyes, which is disagreement or confusion about someone else. I call this Dana's, "I love you, man, but don't be a pussy" face.
We will forever remember those affected by this disgusting and cowardly act.
We get the squinting again, but much stronger, along with raised cheeks like he's about to spit something horrible out of his mouth.
Together, we will heal. Together, we will help the victims and their families. And together, we will be stronger than ever.
Dana gives the strong nods for emphasis. We see some of the anger leave his countenance, replaced with veiled sorrow and empathy. To end, Dana holds his chin up as an example. Firm mouth, no smile or frown. This is determination and resolve. Earlier in the week, Dana White gave $1 million to the victims and their families. In this Skype interview, Dana explains his thoughts behind the gesture.
This is my city. This is my town. I grew up here. I raised my family here. All my friends live here. You know, this is where my business is. And the people, what we're going to do is we're going to donate $1 million to the people, the families, and the people who are affected by this.
Everything that is important to Dana is tied to Las Vegas. He is who he is because of Vegas. This city gave him an opportunity, and he's still running with it today.
All my friends live here.
At the mention of his friends, Dana is hit with an emotional wave. He switches to what he and the UFC are doing to help.
To the people, the families, and the people who are affected by this.
Again, we see a flash of savage anger cross Dana's face when speaking about the families of the victims. Furrowed, heavy brow, bared teeth, and a snarl. This is paternal and protector Dana. Dana thinks that the people who've become rich because of Vegas should help those who are hurting now. This isn't how a government works. This is how a family or tribe behaves. Dana expresses just how personal this tragedy is for him.
This guy was at Life is Beautiful, too, the weekend before this happened. And Life is Beautiful is all kids. Literally everybody in town who has a child, their child was at, my kids were at Life is Beautiful.
In this clip, Dana gives his thumbnail assessment of the psychology of the shooter.
He's the profile. He's the typical coward that comes out to an event and hurts people that are out having fun and not harming anybody. And, he's the typical coward. He's a coward, disgusting coward.
Calls the shooter a typical coward. Typical in this context means a nobody, someone who didn't distinguish himself through effort and smarts. Dana repeatedly calls the guy a coward, which is always linked with the facial expressions for disgust and rage. The guy is a coward in Dana's mind because he targeted innocents and he was sneaky. Dana's week in the public eye ends with the post-fight press conference.
What's up, guys?
Mr. White.
Yes. Hi. The gate.
You can see from his demeanor when he sits down that his emotions are fried. He's quiet and calm. The way he addresses the assembled media is with a concern for them, which we know isn't Dana's standard approach.
What's up?
I want to ask you, first of all, your emotion about the night.
The first question references Dana's emotions, and he lets out a huge breath, like the weight of the world is sitting on his chest.
And I wonder, do you think the fighters reacted to that? Do you think it had an impact on the event itself?
Well, I had a meeting with them. We always have a fighter meeting after the weigh-ins, and I kind of walked them through what tonight was about. And what I really loved, too, is some of the guys were calling asking if they could walk with Nevada flags and stuff like that. The fighters were definitely into it. And with all the shit that's going on in this country right now, I appreciate it that they did. I don't tell anybody what to do or when it comes to political views or any of that type of stuff. Unless it's your music, I'll tell you. You can't walk to that song or something like that. But other than that, no.
You can see how worn Dana is. He's emotionally drained.
What was your thought process on going ahead with the event as opposed to saying it's not time to have an event like this this close to such an event?
It's always time. It's always time to have an event. You can't let a coward determine, how everybody else is going to live their life. This type of stuff is happening all over the world now. This is the world we live in. And you just can't back down to this kind of stuff.
Dana reiterates his conviction that the best response to tragedy is to pick up the pieces and push forward. Then he gives a small glimpse into what's occupying his mind.
This thing is so crazy and so weird. It's been driving me nuts for the entire week. No motive. Nothing makes sense. The guy's 64 years old and carried all this stuff up there and did it. Tom Petty just died at 66, and this was a guy fucking superhuman 64-year-old. It's just crazy. I'm trying not to think about it anymore, but
Dana White is successful because he's a problem solver. With this situation, there's no identifiable reasons, no answers. Yet Dana racks his brain looking for the solution. He's frustrated with himself that he can't fix this for the city and his neighbors.
I told you guys this week, it's $1 million is $1,600 per person. That doesn't fly you home. That doesn't bury a loved one. That does nothing. But to see, Sheldon Adelson and the MGM and, these guys who all, they're competitors. They don't like each other. They don't ever unite. They don't ever, sometimes they might here and there, but most of the time they don't. Tony Shea at Zappos putting in $1 million. Boyd Gaming, the Fertitas, of course, coming in and do it. It's a big deal. It's a big deal to get everybody to do that.
If Dana White's going to prove he's a changed man moving forward, it will be because of comments like this. Dana makes the connection that money and achieving goals are meaningless if your family and community live with fear in their hearts. Dana's public position has been that Demetrius Johnson is not the greatest UFC fighter ever, not even the current pound-for-pound #1. Here we see some of Dana's compassion bleed over into an acknowledgement of just how great DJ is.
Demetrius is the best, man. He broke Anderson Silva's record and did it in spectacular fashion. And I feel like I disrespected, Ray Borg a little bit with the whole TJ Dillashaw. That kid came to fight. He came to fight. He didn't want to tap to that arm bar. I don't know if you guys talked to him yet. His arm can't be feeling too good, but a stud. And I meant no disrespect.
Well, I hate to ruin Dana's moment talking so highly of the champ, but I've got to point out what I see.
Demetrius is the best, man.
Dana starts by saying Demetrius is and pauses with affirmative head nods.
Demetrius is
Then a fairly emotionless gesture with a tight conciliatory frown and looks up to find the right words, maybe a way around saying what he knows he needs to say.
Demetrius is the best, man.
He finishes the phrase, is the best, by shaking his head no and raising his eyebrows in a believe me gesture.
Is the best, man.
Not Dana's most sincere comment of the evening.
He broke Anderson Silva's record and did it in spectacular fashion.
This is interesting. As Dana goes on to explain DJ broke Anderson's record, his old Boston accent comes in on the word record.
He broke Anderson Silva's record.
Listen to that.
Anderson Silva's record.
Wonder what that means.
How did you get in touch with them? How did you bring them to the event today?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to the police department in this town. I love law enforcement. I'm the opposite of all the crazy shit that's going on right now. I love law enforcement. You don't want to see a day when there's no law enforcement. I can promise you that.
Exactly. Ariel asks Dana a very personal question, and in an ecumenical spirit, Dana gives a very personal answer.
And just curious, where were you on Sunday when this happened, and how did it, did you stay up all night watching? How did it affect you?
I was home, and I turned on the TV at about 10 minutes after 11 and started to watch this thing unfold, and I stayed up all night watching it. It was fucking crazy, man. It's crazy when you watch this stuff and it's 10 minutes down the street from your house. Yeah, it was crazy. But it was weird. I got very little sleep. I woke up the next day, but it's almost like I knew exactly what I had to do, and I started.
Well, that's how I see it. Dana White has a mixed track record in his dealings with people, but after the Las Vegas shooting brought unthinkable carnage and loss of innocence to his doorstep, Dana seems like a man potentially recast. He woke up and he knew what he had to do. Will Dana carry this mission forward into all he endeavors, or was it specific to a single time and space? Next episode is a look at the shenanigans between GSP and Michael Bisping. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like it. Remember to subscribe now and guarantee your bragging rights. Leave your questions and comments in the comment section below or over on the Twitters.